Hello best friends and welcome to a quick video on how to use the Figma Variable Scope. My name is Oluwafemi Lawal, but you can call me Femoskeydev. In this short video, we're going to cover what is Figma Variable Scope, how to edit the variable scope, how to update scope in colors, numbers, and string, and also how to apply it in your own design files. Now, what is variable scope? The variable scope limits which properties variables can be applied, which means that when you set variable scope, you can limit where it's going to be showing, right? Let's say you create a color variable right now, you can limit that. Okay, I want this color to show in fill. I don't want this color to show in your stroke. I don't want it to show when I'm applying text and whatnot. So we're going to see how it works in Figma. Now this helps you to what to reduce clutter in the picker and enhances design workflow. Remember, the most essential use case of design systems and variables is to help you make things easy, right? So you have like a better communication with developers and also the entire team. So with variable scope right now, it's going to be easy for you to say that, okay, this particular color, it should only be used for the fill. It should only be used for stroke. This particular number, it should only be used for max width, maybe for height, for width only. It shouldn't show when I'm trying to add a border radius and so on and so forth. So let's dive right into Figma and see how it works. All right, here in Figma, the first thing I'm going to do is to create my own variables. So I'm going to be creating the color variables, a string variable, and also a number variable. Now, note that these are only the variables that you can edit their scope and basically play around with scope in Figma. So let's create our first variable. So the first thing we need to do is to come here and click on variables here. So you can see I only have like one variable here. So I'm going to create a new collection for this. So let me create a new collection and I'm going to name it test or sample variables. All right. Now I'll create my first one. And the first one I'm going to create is what is a color variable. So let's say these are primary color and let's leave it as, let's say black. Just type black and we have black there. Or let me name it as black. So I'll create two colors. Let me duplicate this. I'll duplicate this and say, let's say white. That's FFF and I'll have white. Now for you to set the scope, what you need to do is you have to hover or select the variable that you want to edit the scope. Then you go to the edge here, right? You can click on this. Now you can see we have this dialog box here and it shows the details where you can update the details. You can hide from publishing. You can add a code syntax and you can basically update it, right? If you want to, that's updating the value. So which means if I update this to, let's say white, it updates there. So let's take it back to black, right? Now this is where we have our scope. Now what scope means is it means that, okay, all these check boxes, right, that are checked, it's your color is going to show there, right? So if you click on, okay, show in all supported properties, which means that every property that supports a color variable is going to be displayed there. Now we also have fill. You can see frame, shape, text, stroke, and effects. Now let's see how this works, right? Let me reduce this a little bit. Then I'm going to draw. Let me add a frame, right? Now, if I go to my color variable right now, that's under fill, and I click on this button, and let's say custom, yeah, variable here. Yeah, you can see I have black and white, right? I have black and white here under fill. Let me add black right now. So if I come back here and restrict, let me say I want to limit this variable right now. I don't want it to be displayed when I want to add a fill. If I click on, I deselect fill, right? Now let's go back to this. Let me draw another frame, right? And I come here. And you can see I don't have black anymore because I have told Figma that, okay, I don't want this variable to show when I'm trying to add a fill. Now, if I'm trying to add a stroke, you can see it, the black color is showing there, right? So this is how scope work in Figma. So it just helps you to what to limit. Okay, where should this variable be displaying? Where can I be able to pick this variable? Right? I don't want this color to be used for fill. I only want this color to be used for what? Um, for your stroke or maybe for effects and so on and so forth. So you can see right now, even if I come here and say, okay, I also don't want this to be to show under effects. So if I come here and add, like, let's say I add an effect here, let me add a drop shadow, and I come here, right? This is drop shadow color picker, and I go under libraries. You can see I don't have the black color here, right? The one that is showing is picking it from Flow by Design System because that's what we'll be using subsequently to update other variables. So this is how scope works in Figma. Let's add one more variable. So I'm going to create a new variable, let's say a number variable, and let's say I give it 10, right? Now for number variable, it's quite broad. You have a lot of properties that you can apply number to. So you can see you can apply it to corner radius, the width and height, the gap, um, the text content, stroke, layer opacity, effects, and also for typography, you can add your number to the font weight, font size, paragraph spacing, and so on and so forth. So first, let's deselect for corner radius, right? So which means that if I select this and go under corner radius, which is under appearance here, and I try to apply a variable here, you can see I don't have anyone showing. All the ones that are showing right now are from the Flowbyte design system, right? So, but if I come back here and say, okay, this number, I want to see it under corner radius, that's number 10, and you can see it has number as the name, right, of the variable. Now, if I come back here and say, okay, apply a variable here, you can say I have number here, and I can round this corner um, by 10 pixels, right? So if I come here again and say, okay, this scope, I don't want to see it under stroke. I don't want to see it under gap. So if I come here and say I add an auto layout to this, let's say Shift A to this container, and I go under gap, which is this, and I click on this and try to apply a variable, you can see I don't see the number there. But if I come back here and say, okay, click on this, go back to gap, and now I can see the 10 pixels there, right? So this is basically how scope also works in number. So you can play around with other properties and try to apply them even for text content. Like if you have a text content, if you have a text right now, let's say we have a text, right? You can apply variable to this. If I make it, let's say I make it a component, Shift A, um, Control Alternate K, right, to make it a component. Then let's say I want to apply a property to this. I can click on this and say number. I can apply a number property and you can see it changes to what, to 10. But if I come back here and say under scope, I don't want you to show under text content, right? So which means that if I detach this and I try to apply it again, you can see I don't have the number showing there anymore. So this is how numbers work. So you can play around with others, you can apply it to other properties and so on and so forth. So let's create the last one, that's for string. So for string right now, let's say we have Femoskeydev. For string, the scope is quite minimal, so it means you can apply it to text content, font family, font weight, or style, right? So let's go to text content. So this is a component, and click on this, and I can see string here, and it changes to Femoskeydev. Now, if I also go to under typography, I can click on apply variable here, and I'm going to see Femoskeydev. Now, for typography, it only works if you are using let's say you are using a name of a typeface, right? So instead of Femoskeydev here, let me update this to, let's say Ionic, right? I think that's the name of a font I have. Ionic, right? That's the name of the font here. So which means if I come here and apply this variable, let's say in this file, right? Yeah, I want to apply a variable here, and I select string. It's going to change this font right now to what? To Ionic font. Let me press Ctrl Z. Look at the font or the typeface, right? You can see it, right? It's Inter, right? But if I come here and say click on this and I apply that string variable that I've just created, you can see it updates to what, to Ionic fonts. If I detach this right now, you can see the font that is there, or the typeface that is there, is what is typographic. You can also apply this to the font weight. So let me create another under string variable. Let me duplicate this and say this is for the font weight or the font style, whatever you call it. So let me say this is regular. So it must be the name of what, of that um font weight, right? If you use different name, it's not going to work. Even if you can apply it, it's not going to work. Your font will not change because it doesn't recognize. Maybe that typograph or that typeface doesn't have that font weight, right, as a name. So you can say I can come under here right now and say let me apply a variable. I can apply let's say font weight. I'm using regular. If I come here and I change this to bold, right, you can see my text also becomes bold. So this is very interesting. Helps you to what, to limit um where a particular variable can be used, right, in properties. So for string, for number variable, for color variable, it's quite different. So you have to just play around with it to see how it works. Now let's go into something that is more interesting. All right, let's see how this works in a real world application. So we have um, this design here. Remember this design that we made, right? For those that have not watched it, you can go and um, watch the Flow by Design System series where we recreated this UI using the Flow by Design System. So we're going to be using the Flowbyte design system for this tutorial. So here right now, you can see that if I select the Flowbyte design system, let's try to add spacing. Now, if I select this, you can see that under spacing, I have a lot of numbers here, right? But if I try to add a corner radius, I have limited values right here. You can see I only have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, and so on and so forth, right? So I don't have all the values here, right? So how about I want to add one of those values, let's say um the spacing value here, right? I want to add them under this. How do I do that? So what I have to do is to go back to the flow by design system. So either you can right click here and go to main components. So it's going to take you back to design system that you published already. Then you have to go to under the variables, right? Select variables here. Let me expand this. Then what you need to do is under spacing, you can see under spacing primitive, you can see spacing here. Now let's say we want to add 20 pixels corner radius, right? If I select this right now and I go to scope here, now you can see that, let's go to scope, right? You can see that under scope, they have deactivated this from showing on some properties, right? So which means that this value is only going to show in what? In width and height and gap, right? But we also want this 20 right now to show under what? Our corner radius. So what do? We have to look for corner radius here and check it. So let's check corner radius and I'll cancel this, just 20 alone. So what we would have to do is, let me close this, right? Then we'll have to republish this design system here. So let me republish it here. Let me just publish it again. I think I only made one update, so it should publish quickly. It's publishing. We're waiting. Okay, showing that we have 2000 to go. So let's just wait a minute. All right, that's finished publishing. You can see successfully published library update. So let's go back here. All right, so I'm going to select this one. Then we click on corner radius, try to add corner radius. So you can see now, you can see I have this spacing now 20 showing under corner radius, and I can apply what, 20 pixels to this. So this is not the best practice. The best way to do it is to go back to your flow by design system. Probably you can select this here, and then what you can do is, since you have made this to be showing here, right, you can go to under border radius and say, okay, maybe I want to add another one here. Let me duplicate this one. Let me duplicate this and say I want to add 20. So I can come here now and add 20. That's 5, right? And it's going to show this instead. So you can also set the scope if you want to. So you can see the scope. I want it to show under corner radius only, right? Um, Let me see if they set scope here. There's no scope here, but I've set scope for this, so this should show under corner radius, right? Then you have to republish again. So I'm just going to select this and publish just one change. Just quickly publish. Yeah, it's publishing. So just one change is publishing. So I've published already. So let's go back here. Then if I select this, now you can see I have what? Rounded corner 2XL2, right? Under border radius. And it's coming from what? The flow by design system. So you can see it's under here. So this is basically how to update yours. So you have to update the scope if you want it to be displayed under a particular property. So for the color property too, you'll notice that there are some colors that don't show under your stroke value, right? There's some colors that don't show here. It is either let me select just flow by design system. So whatever color that does not show here, it means that what it is not checked under what the scope. So you have to go and update that there. So let me know if you have any more questions. I remain your favorite product designer, and I hope that you learned a thing or two in this video. I'll see you in the next one. Keep doing more for yourself. And also, I also have a course on Seller that you can quickly get to learn UI UX design. If that's you, you're wanting to do more for yourself, um, click on check the link in the description and you can just get that, right? I'll see you in the next one and keep doing more for yourself. Bye, guys.